Hello everyone, Danny here from Metal Couch, bringing you the first album review of 2012. I'm going to have a look at Lamb of God's Resolution, which is due out on January 24th this year. Now, to kind of set up my experience with Lamb of God, I've never listened to an entire Lamb of God album all the way through. I've maybe heard 2 or 3 songs from their entire discography, and when they announced that there's going to be a new album coming out, I figured, what the hell? Let's give it a listen, see if I like it, and review it. So track listing, you have Straight for the Sun, Desolation, Ghost Walking, Guilty, The Undertow, The Number 6, Barbarossa, Invictus, Cheated, Insurrection, Terminally Unique, To the End, Visitation, and King Me. So you got 14 tracks on this album, pretty decent amount. This album clocks in a little bit under an hour, I think more precisely about 56.5 minutes. And going into this, I didn't know what to expect. Hearing very few songs from their entire discography, which they've been around for a decent amount of time. Straight for the Sun is it's an aggressive opening track. It's something that I would expect a metal band to open up with, something that's aggressive to try to hook you into this. But I feel like this album could have benefited from a little bit more variety in terms of composition of the tracks. I feel like there are some tracks on here where I feel like I'm listening to the same tracks over and over. That's not to say that this is a bad thing, but a little variety every now and then could help spice things up a little bit, which we do get a bit of variety. For example, Ghost Walking, the intro of it has a nice drop tune acoustic intro. It's a nice little touch, but it's not until we get to track 5, The Undertow, that I actually hear something that may resemble a guitar solo. This album is very much lacking in terms of guitar solos, which is not something I would have expected from a metal band like Lamb of God. Not having listening to their previous work, I don't know if this was if this is how they normally do their work, if it's devoid of solos like this, but I feel having a couple of solos every now and then, besides 5 tracks in until you hear one, it seems a bit odd to me. It's different. It's not something that I am normally exposed to. Then we get tracks like Barbarossa, which is a short little instrumental track, which helps lead into Invictus. Now, overall, this album, as I said before, there are a lot of tracks that sound the same. And I just don't really, I can't quite put my finger on it, but there are some things about this that just, overall, the album becomes boring to me. This is an album that I don't think that I would have in constant rotation in my music library because of the fact that there's not enough variety here. Granted, you do have great tracks on this album. Some of my favorite tracks are Ghost Walking, The Undertow. I did enjoy some of the kind of jazzy feel interludes of The Number 6. I also enjoyed tracks such as Insurrection and Invictus. I felt that those are probably the strongest tracks on the album. The rest of it kind of feels like filler to me. You do get some pretty fast-paced riffs in songs like Visitation, but is this an early pick for Album of the Year? Not even close. Is it a pretty decent album? Sure it is. Vocal work is... it's nothing new. It's nothing I haven't heard before. I felt that there was there's not enough here to make the vocals sound unique. Production-wise, it's what I would expect from a metal album. Guitar work, as I said before, I would have appreciated to hear a little bit more guitar solos, but that's a personal preference, and maybe their style of music, which they're classified under Metal Archives as a metalcore groove metal band. So metalcore really not too big on the guitar solos, so I can kind of see where the lack of solos comes from. It's not really part of their subgenre of metal. I feel that this album could have benefited a little bit more on the composition side. There's a lot of monotony in this album. It's a decent album, I'll give it that. It's worth a listen, at least one listen, but it's not something I'm going to keep constant rotation. So if I had to give Lamb of God's Resolution a final grade, I'd give it a 6.5 out of 10. It's slightly above average, but after listening to it maybe once or twice, there's not much to see here. So, 6.5 out of 10 from me, Danny here from Metal Couch, signing off.